Shalom, family. Good to see everyone here. Hope you're doing well. Just another reminder I have an everything botana sale going on where you can get it for 30% off. You can get it in the bottles, 4 ounce, 8 ounce, or the 4 ounce jars, 8 ounce jars. And it also includes the bundle. So if you want to get the 4 ounce bottle, the 4 ounce whip, and an 8 ounce whip, you'll get it for 30% off. All right. And this is on Etsy, Shopify, and also my TikTok shop. Y'all, mm-mm-mm. Trump came out and said he wants to take Iran's oil. I said, okay, now you're really finding out what this whole thing is about, y'all. This whole thing is about oil. You know, one thing about Donald Trump, he got a big mouth and he's always going to let the cat out the bag. He doesn't know how to keep things to himself. Another thing, while we were in between live streams, I found out Donald Trump is doing a complete blackout of satellite images of the war. All right. And let me tell you why I think he's doing this blackout. Now, that doesn't mean you can't watch it on foreign news, okay? It just means he's blacking out the images that you would normally see in the US. It doesn't matter what he blocks out because we can always go to foreign news. But I think the damage to the US bases over there is so bad. Donald Trump don't want those images seen. If you notice, we have not seen a lot of good images of the damage done to the US bases over there in the Middle East. They have really gone above and beyond hiding those images. And I really believe that's what it's all about, because if you see those images, it'll be no doubt that the US is not winning this war. He don't want anyone to see how bad it really truly is. It's just like when he doesn't give us the real numbers on the deceased. He doesn't want anybody to know how bad it is. They're still sitting on 13, y'all. 5 weeks later, 5 weeks into the war, they're still sitting on the number 13. Only 13 were lost. So it is inevitable. You're not going to get any truth from Donald Trump. If he's covering stuff up, that right there will tell you there's no truth. So don't look for any satellite images from here on out. You probably won't it unless you go online to a foreign source, then you will be able to get those, because a lot of countries got satellites. We don't only have to look at satellite images from the US. So, that being said, y'all, we're going to get into Donald Trump and what he said about stealing Iranian oil. Isn't that what he did to Venezuela? And that's what it was all about in getting Maduro out of there. He wanted to access their oil and the resources they have in Venezuela. Well, he thought he was going to be able to do that with Iran. They thought on that first day of bombing and taking out the Ayatollah, they were going to be able to go in and do whatever they want. But as time went on and Iran kept fighting back hard, they now realize it may not be possible to go in there and just take their oil, because Iran has demonstrated they are more than willing to fight back. So let's get to it, y'all. Okay, please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Now, you're going to see the first time Donald Trump spoke about Iran in an interview back in 1987. I want you to pay close attention to what he said and how that is applying to what he said just a few days ago. Thank you, everybody.
You're going to have a war, and it's going to start in the Middle East. Why couldn't we go in and take over some of their oil, which is along the sea?
How would you do that? Would you send in the Marines? Would you take a chance in a war?
Let them have Iran. You take their oil. That's what
How?
How?
I mean, do we want a war? What do you mean we
in,
take their oil?
You go in. You're
How
gonna have
do
a
we
war,
go
Barbara.
in?
You're going to have a war by being weak.
Okay, how do we go in? What do we do?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You're going to have a war, and it's going to start in the Middle East.
What if the Soviet Union said, you do this to Iran, we're going to come in?
I don't believe they'd do it. The next time Iran attacks this country, go in and grab one of their big oil installations, and I mean grab it and keep it, and get back your losses, because this country has lost plenty because of Iran.
If I had my choice, what would I like to do? Take the oil, because it's there for the taking. There's not a thing they can do about it. Unfortunately, the American people would like to see us come home. If it were up to me, I'd take the oil, I'd keep the oil, and would make plenty of money. And I'd also take care of the people of Iran much better than they've been taken care of. It's been horrible. Yeah, if it were up to
Y'all notice he spoke about taking care of the people of Iran, and not one time in his speech did he talk about taking care of the American people. Not one time. But he did say take care, steal their oil and take care of the Iranian people, but nothing about the American people. Let's go on.
me, I'd like to keep the oil. I just don't think the people of the United States would really understand.
The Wall Street Journal this morning reporting the U.S. has struck 50 military targets on Karg Island in Iran. That is the strategic oil export site that could be the site of a ground invasion were the Americans to undertake such a mission. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, was asked about this while he was on a trip in Hungary and confirmed the strike this morning.
My understanding, having talked to Pete and General Kane about this, is that we were going to strike some military targets on Karg Island. I believe we have done so. The president's deadline has been followed by us and everybody else, and he said very clearly, we're not going to strike energy and infrastructure targets until the Iranians either make a proposal that we can get behind or don't make a proposal, but he's given them until Tuesday at 8 o'clock. So I don't think the news on Karg Island represents a change in strategy or represents any change from the President of the United States.
What do you say to Americans who are not a fan of the war?
They're foolish, because the war is about one thing. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Had we not broken the Barack Hussein Obama agreement, you know what I'm talking about, the Iran nuclear deal. This is years ago, my first term. You would have had a total, Israel would have been gone, extinguished. Israel would have been wiped off the face of the earth, and the entire Middle East would have been, at a minimum, in big trouble. But I did it. That was phase one. We killed Soleimani. Without Soleimani, if they had Soleimani, it would be a whole different thing. Maybe. We'd still be winning, but it would have been harder, because we are obliterating that country. And I hate to do it, but we're obliterating, and they just don't want to say uncle. They don't want to cry, as the expression goes, uncle, but they will. And if they don't, they'll have no bridges, they'll have no power plants, they'll have no anything. I won't go further, because there are other things that are worse than those two. And we might have, well, the thing, if I had my choice, what would I like to do? Take the oil, because it's there for the taking. There's not a thing they can do about it. Unfortunately, the American people would like to see us come home. If it were up to me, I'd take the oil, I'd keep the oil, and would make plenty of money. And I'd also take care of the people of Iran much better than they've been taken care of. It's been horrible. They've killed 45,000 people as of a month and a half ago. 45,000 protesters. We don't do that. So if I had my choice, I'd keep the oil. But I also want to make the people of our country happy. I think most people wouldn't understand that.
He literally said that if it were up to him, he would take the oil because it's there for the taking and they can't do anything about it. He would take what's not his. I'm wondering if those are the same exact words that he used on all of the victims in the e-files. Then he said that he would help the people of Iran. But what about America first? What about the American people? Last I checked, the U.S. Treasury Department is insolvent, which means that the U.S. Treasury Department went bankrupt. There's no money to help the American people. Not the elderly, not children, not disabled veterans. But there's money to fund this war, right? He's literally begging Congress to give him $1.5 trillion for the military defense budget.
If I had my choice, what would I like to do? Take the oil. Because it's there for the taking. There's not a thing they can do about it. Unfortunately, the American people would like to see us come home. If it were up to me, I'd take the oil, I'd keep the oil, and would make plenty of money. And I'd also take care of the people of Iran much better than they've been taken care of. It's been a horrible.
Is the real goal of this war actually denuclearization? Right now, President Trump is openly saying that we could take control of Iran's oil, even Karg Island, the hub that handles most of their crude exports. And that matters because Karg isn't just another island. It sits at the center of Iran's export system, while the Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most critical energy choke points in the world. Here's the part nobody's talking about. Once we stop talking about deterrence and start talking about controlling another country's oil, this stops looking like a defensive mission and starts looking like an economic war objective. And once that line is crossed, the precedent becomes dangerous because it signals that energy infrastructure is now a legitimate target. Now, to be fair, some will argue this is the fastest way to pressure Tehran, hit their revenue, cut their leverage, and end the conflict sooner. But if that logic keeps expanding, are we still trying to stabilize the region, or are we redefining what this war is really about?
More has been reviewed about Trump's and Netanyahu's war against Iran. Major explosion at Iranian oil depot following U.S. Israeli airstrikes. Does this sound familiar? They kidnapped the president of Venezuela to steal the country's oil and gold. Now they're openly boasting about stealing Iran's oil. For sure, keep telling yourselves this U.S.-Israeli criminal of war aggression is to liberate the women of Iran. Right here, this is a White House official of energy. White House official says the U.S. will seize all the oil from Iran. And this is the same guy that says Chevron and all these other United States based oil companies are in Venezuela pumping the most gas they have ever produced in the last 20 or 30 years. They said they're going to steal the oil from all the terrorists.
So, guys, we have some very terrible and sad news to report to you today. I mean, some good news. The president is alive and well. And yeah, so he said this very controversial thing about Iranian oil, which is absolutely no surprise. Check this out.
Well, the thing, if I had my choice, what would I like to do? Take the oil. Because it's there for the taking. There's not a thing they can do about it. Unfortunately, the American people would like to see us come home. If it were up to me, I'd take the oil, I'd keep the oil, and would make plenty of money.
So Donald Trump being Donald Trump, you can tell that that's the real Donald Trump and not AI because he's talking about stealing stuff from people and making lots of money. So yeah, the reports were that Donald Trump was in the hospital. We still don't know if that was true or not. He may have actually had to go to the hospital for something, but it does appear as though he is now out of the hospital or didn't go to the hospital at all. So great, sad news. Sorry. Good news that the president is in good health.
Great big beautiful bill passes.
I go now to Trey Yingst back in Tel Aviv, where he has the latest. And Trey, we understand you have brand new reporting from the White House. What can you tell us?
Yeah, guys, good morning. I just spoke with President Trump for 15 minutes. He gave me some new details on the negotiations behind the scenes with the Iranians and what's going to happen if Iran does not make a good faith deal. The president tells me if they don't make a deal and fast, I'm considering blowing everything up and taking over the oil. The president went on to say you're going to see bridges and power plants dropping all over their country. Now, I asked him about the possibility of an agreement with the Iranians. He says those who are negotiating on behalf of Iran have been granted amnesty at this time so they can continue the talks. And the president tells me he thinks he'll be able to get a deal by tomorrow. He says, I think there's a good chance tomorrow. They're negotiating now. All of this following the president's post on True Social, where he talked about these negotiations with the Iranians. We'll pull this up. He says, quote, Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day, all wrapped up in one. In Iran, there will be nothing like it. Open the effing straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. The president posting there on True Social about this ongoing operation and his new red line for the Iranian regime. Now, the president also provided new details on what happened earlier this year as the Iranian regime took to the streets and slaughtered what the president tells me is 45,000 civilians in their own country. After that took place, President Trump told me the United States sent guns to the Iranian protesters. He tells me we sent them a lot of guns. We sent them through the Kurds, and the president says he thinks the Kurds kept them. He went on to say we sent guns to the protesters, a lot of them. And so a number of headlines here from my conversation with President Trump. All of this taking place more than a month into Operation Epic Fury and in the aftermath of that successful U.S. operation overnight to rescue that stranded U.S. service member in.
Now, did you hear what they said? Donald Trump sent guns. He sent weapons to the protesters. Now that you're at war with them, those protesters can take those guns and turn it on the U.S. I mean, come on. They're not fighting each other over there, but they will fight you. But they gave the protesters weapons, y'all. They gave them weapons. They gonna use those weapons provided by the U.S. and they're gonna turn it on the U.S. soldiers. How stupid. How stupid. See, Donald Trump wanted the people in Iran to turn on their own government and fight their own government. And it didn't happen. And at this point, it won't happen. Yeah, they protested on the streets, but I don't think they wanted to kill everybody up in their government. But that's what they were hoping would happen. But you just gave them ammunition to fight our soldiers. But they got the high IQ, y'all. They are the ones with that high IQ. That's all I got to say. Let's go on.
Inside Iranian territory, the president himself ordering that operation after the CIA came on Saturday morning and confirmed that they located where this crew member of an F-15 that was shot down on Friday was located. Again, the president making that decision to send in hundreds of U.S. special forces deep into Iranian territory and successfully retrieving that U.S. service member. Guys?
I want to make sure I got this correctly. Are you saying that the president told you that he sent guns, the U.S. government sent guns to the protesters via the Kurdish, that the Kurdish kept some of the guns?
Correct. The president tells me that the United States sent guns to the Iranian protesters earlier this year. He says,
right. So the Kurdish people kept some of the guns, but they did still give a lot of those guns to the Iranian people, y'all. They didn't keep all of the guns. So they kept some and they gave some to the Iranian people. So at the end of the day, you gave guns to people that now can turn those things on the U.S. soldiers, especially if you do a ground invasion. You not only got the Iranian military, now you got the civilians that are armed. That's all I'm saying. That's not bright. That's stupid. But let's go on.
We sent them a lot of guns. We sent them through the Kurds, and he thinks that the Kurds kept them. Remember, the president made a commitment to the Iranian protesters who were in the streets of their country earlier this year. Those images were circulating online of thousands of people who were slaughtered at the hands of the Iranian regime, the current regime that is attacking U.S. forces as we speak. And the president made a commitment on True Social to those protesters, and he said help is on the way. And we are learning as a result of this call with President Trump that he attempted to send guns to these protesters in order to fight back and defend them. Remember, these were peaceful demonstrators who were protesting against their government, and they were met with live ammunition from the Iranian regime. in the streets of their country. They were slaughtered. And Fox News was talking to people in Iran who were using Starlink, and they were describing these horrific scenes in the streets of their country. And the president, again, told them that support and help was on the way. And so it appears that was the help the president was talking about. And again, as all of this is taking place, now that we zoom out 3 months later, the president is offering the Iranians a diplomatic solution to end this conflict. The same offer that he gave the Iranians before Operation Epic Fury began.
Exactly.
And remember, we know that at the negotiating table before this operation began, the opening position of the Iranian regime is that we have 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, enough to make 11 nuclear bombs. And the president, understanding the country's ballistic missile program and their nuclear aspirations, ultimately ordered this operation. Well, more than 35 days later, the president once again is offering the Iranians a diplomatic solution. And again, he tells Fox News in a phone call earlier today, he thinks he'll be able to get a deal with Iran by tomorrow. He says he thinks there's a good chance tomorrow. They are negotiating now. But again, the president goes on to tell me you're going to see bridges and power plants dropping all over their country if they're unwilling to make a
All right, y'all. Well, I think if you would have left your generals in place, they would have told you not to do that. Don't drop any weapons anywhere in there, you know? But this is the result of Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump making making the military decisions. So this is what you get. All right. So the Kurds got some of the weapons, the Iranians got some of the weapons. And he wanted them to give them all. And so they would revolt and turn on their own government. And that never happened. It never happened. They may not have been happy with their government, but it didn't mean they wanted to unalive them. So, yes, it backfired. It backfired. But the thing is, nobody still knows whether Donald Trump is going to give the orders for the troops to go on ground. There's like 50,000 over there right now. And it could possibly be more, because over these last 5 weeks, they've been continuously sending more troops and sailors in that region. But see, they don't want generals with knowledge and, and know about warfare. They don't want those kind of people around. Donald Trump wants dumb people around like himself. You know? So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Please remember, the botana oil is on sale until the 11th. So take advantage and grab it up. I sure got a lot available, that's for sure. So I will see you soon. There's a couple of stories that I'm looking at. If I don't come back later on today, I'll definitely do those stories tomorrow. Shalom, family.